Hello and welcome to Kinboshi Radio, where Nick, it's Banzuke Christmas.
It's the best day of the quarter.
Everything is still a posse of the quarter. Yeah, the fiscal year has begun. We joke about it all the time, but we legitimately love this, and I do think it's that idea that, like, anything can happen, right? You look at a fresh Banzuke, and there's all these possibilities before the tournament starts, and Takayasu breaks your heart like he always does to me.
And then right before all your favorite people drop out due to injuries.
Oh, it's so true. What a world we live in. But this time, I mean, we'll get to a little later, but a lot of guys back from injury. But what are your general thoughts on the Banzuke? I'm going to give just a few, highlights, but we're down to 3 Ozeki because Kirishima's down at Sekiwake trying to get his 10 wins and bounce straight back up. Your beloved Abi still holding the fort down at Sekiwake, now alongside Onosato. Daisho back where he belongs in the Sanyaku, although not at Sekiwake where we really think he should be. But Hiradoumi, the unsung hero of this young generation, has finally made a Komusubi debut, I feel like I always forget, this dude's only 24, it feels like he's been around for longer, but just never quite gets the same, praise as the other guys.
No, I agree. So specifically with Hiradoumi, for some reason, he's another one where he just feels invisible to me, where I don't notice him. All of a sudden, I'm like, Komusubi, I kind of just forgot that he was very close last time.
I know, yeah, and he's great up there. So that's kind of one of my general sort of surprise. It's not a surprise because, like you said, he was close last time, and he just deserves this. But still, just seeing him there, I'm like, what?
Yeah, for some reason, in my brain, he's still at the 4 to 5 range.
Yeah. Which, he deserves, those high Maigashuras. And it's interesting because with these other guys around, we call them the young generation, except they're totally still his generation. He is younger than Gonoyama. It doesn't feel that way, but I don't expect him to have leapfrogged Gonoyama like that, but obviously he should have. He's been in the top division way more than Gonoyama.
Yeah, I think for the most part overall, everything kind of shook out the way that you and I had talked about or kind of guessed.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. What do you think with Kirishima? Do you think he's getting back up to Ozeki? Do you think he can get his 10?
Man, so now the talk is that he's got a neck injury, right? And I'm
no.
Yeah, so because we've seen that with Takakeisho. If that is healthy, then yes, 100%, no problem. But if the neck injury is, you know what I mean? We've been talking, is this mental? Is this, what is this with him? But these neck injuries seem to be game over for guys when they get them. So that's what scares me. I'm going to go ahead. If pressed to make a choice, I say, yeah, instant bounce back for Kirishima. A guy who, again, 6 months ago, we were saying should be Yokozuna. This is crazy. How about you?
No, that's kind of where I'm at. I think I didn't know about the neck injury, so that's a bummer. That kind of puts a big potential dent in it. But I was 10 wins. I'm he should be able to rock that up pretty easy. He mostly does.
Right. And looking at the guys around him, okay, so, Takakeisho's a tough fight for him, but that's a wounded giant right there. Hoshoryu and Kotozakura, I see no reason why he couldn't beat both those guys. Yes, he could lose to both those guys, or he could split with those guys, but whatever. Abi and Onosato, love them both, but I think he's better than them. If they were all three healthy, I think Kirishima's the best of those three. Daisho and Hiradoumi, so basically what I'm saying is even the guys who for a normal Rikishi would be speed bumps up here, I don't think they're speed bumps for him. I think he can beat them all.
No, I agree. I mean, he's beaten them all in the past, and I think he can do it, but he said, hopefully his neck works.
Yeah, right. That's womp womp. Whatever. We'll find out. Besides that, we were talking with some friends just yesterday. Another interesting thing is just a lot of retreads coming back up here. So Nishikifuji holds serve and maintains at M17, but Kagayaki's back up, Bushozan's back up, Roga's kind of circling the drains, hanging out up there. Endo's back up. Chiyoshima, after a long hiatus, is back up. We're going to talk more about him later, so I won't hammer on it now, but Wakatakakage is back up. So for the first time in a while, like we've talked about, this new stream of the young generation appears to sort of be running out now. Not in a bad way, just all the young guys have gotten themselves up or so. So that's interesting to me that we're sort of restabilizing, I guess. And then like there's not a ton of surprises for me. Like everyone kind of feels appropriately ranked. The guys hanging out in the middle. But what is one either give me one of each, or if you only have one, that's cool. What's one overranked or underranked surprise you've got?
So, and I know this shouldn't surprise me at all because he sat out the entire last time, but Asanoyama at Mega Shira 12, it just feels like every time he just touches the Sanyaku again, just shot back down.
Dude, yeah, it's insane. You're so right. Like, even when he gets to the high Magashiras, he'll get hurt and sit out of the tournament. Like, he had that calf tear. And then this time, finally made his glorious return to Sanyaku, except no, he didn't, because he still hasn't fought a Sanyaku match. Like, yeah. And you and I talked about this, like, on some level, there's nothing to say about this, because we know what's happening. Like, I know what happened. I'm now in my mid-30s. I know what happened to my body when I hit 30. Like, right? Like, that's all that's happening here.
Yep. No, and I feel the same way, which I think he'll cruise through the bottom, but it's like he just can't quite get up there again.
Yeah. Like, yeah. Oh, sorry. You go.
Oh, sorry. So I was gonna say, I think, but then for my upper rank, it's not a surprise, but it's kind of a pleasant, like, oh, good, I'm glad this happens. Mitakeumi back.
That was my one. Too. Yes, you stole it, and I'm glad you did, because we can talk about this. Like, okay, it's preach.
It's just a pleasant rise to see. Like, he had such a terrible Ozeki run prior to that, fantastic, but that was so bad. So it's nice to see him like rising back up. I would love to see Shodai do the same thing, because he should. He's good enough, but at least one of them is coming back.
Yeah.
Not necessarily to Ozeki, but at least coming back up towards the top.
Right. And I'll say, like, I guess, interestingly, it would have been July last year was the nadir for him. He was 3-12, and he was Maegashira 2 in July last year as well, which is hilarious. And that's what dropped him to M11. But since that big drop, he's only had one losing tournament in that entire year. So September, he went 9-6, November 8-7, January was his losing tournament, 6-9, March 9-6, and then May 8-7. But for me, like, the surprise part is, like you and I have talked about, he deserves this on reputation, and we know peak quality from him. But he doesn't deserve this on performance. Like, to go from Maegashira 7 to Maegashira 2 off of an 8-7, that doesn't make sense. But he is a guy who's not necessarily going to be afraid of any of the top rankers up here. Like, he should be able to hold serve up here. But personally, I don't think he will. I don't know. His lower body strength seems to be gone. When he made his Ozeki rise and was at the peak of his game, it was all with that supreme driving power. Like, yes, the guy has a lot of weight and he has the upper body strength, but, you know, he was just like this classic prototypical what you would want, where his upper body strength locks someone in, his weight is his defense, other people can't push him back, and those legs, that driving power, would just take over a match. And now he still shows that driving power every match for a split second, but more often than not, people are able to withstand his charge, and then he's just exhausted and they take over, and he never has that second push. So it's like that strength isn't really there. It's a phantom strength. He's like chewing on a sensu bean real quick, but then still gets punched down.
No, I would like to see him at least back up to like Megashira 1.
Uh-huh.
But which, speaking of, Terunofuji just struggling at Megashira 1.
I know.
And it's not even because he's bad, it's because look at everybody around him.
Yeah. It's so interesting because he's so good. Now, you and I have talked before, like, I personally am obviously Isegahama is doing something right. Now, whether the something they're doing right is just that they have this name and so they recruit really well, I don't know. Or is it because of training, or is it because of the competition having so many good wrestlers in one place? But where I think they are constantly doing something wrong is forcing guys to fight through injuries and stuff like that. Terunofuji, those upper body injuries, like, I think they've done him a disservice. But okay, so setting that aside, like you said, he definitely deserves to be where he is, but he has not been able to break through ever. He just, like, it's so frustrating, you know? He gets so tantalizingly close, and even last time, like, ugh.
I think I expected it. I was hoping he was going to break through, and like he and Hiroumi would have swapped last time.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at around him, the other, as may say, unpredictable, but like really hurts the top people. Wakamoto Haru, Mitakeumi, Takayasu. I'm like, ooh, good luck.
Especially again, like, so Takayasu, he's always a roll of the dice. Like, how's his lumbar injured, or his lower back? I think he's got some herniated discs or something like that. Whatever. But we've seen that as long as he's not in horrible pain, he's still elite. But yeah, like you said, Wakamoto Haru at M2, I can't call him like a surprise low ranked or anything, because based on his performance, that's where he deserves to be. But the frog hopper extraordinaire, like, the fury and the violence is still there, and he is going to absolutely just chew up some folks here. Like, I'm glad to see Meisei at M1. He deserves to be there. I think Waka will blast him. I'm glad to see Atamifuji still holding serve at M1. I think Waka will blast him. Mitakeumi, I think, has no hope. Gonoyama, I don't know. That's a tougher matchup, but I do think he's better than him. Like, all these things, that's like you said. So when you look at these guys like Atamifuji there, but then you look at some of the guys who've dropped out of the Sanyaku recently but are battling or yo-yoing to go back in, like, I don't know, man.
Yeah, I think Wakamoto Haru is like the grenade of like the upper Megashiras, where he's gonna blast everybody.
Totally. And like, just as long as he's healthy, I guess. What was it? I don't know. Because he sat out a few days last tournament. That's basically what doomed him. But was it an ankle injury? I can't even remember.
I was thinking of something with his leg. I can't remember for sure.
Yeah, lower body at any rate. So, but as long as he's rehabbed it correctly and he's healthy, like, should be fine. I don't see anything. Other than that, I don't think I have anything to add, because I think you're spot on with your two. Like, Asanoyama, it's not a surprise that he's low ranked or whatever. It's that he's too low ranked, because obviously he's flirting with this Sanyaku, but sat out a whole tournament, so he's dropped all the way down to where he has. And Mitakeumi, you're exactly right where I was on that one. Like, I'm like, ooh boy, look at what's gonna happen here. Would love to yeah, you know what, let's touch back on Mitakeumi for 1 second. Is this where he finally turns it back around and we get a swan song from him? Like, does he make one last Sanyaku push in his career?
I would love to see it, and I think he could. He's got the skill to do it. Wakamoto Haru being like his really difficult one, probably in the little range, but I think he can do it. He should at least get 8.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking around and I think you're right. I think he can beat Meisei, Atamifuji, Gonoyama. I think he can beat Hiradoumi. Daisho, coin flip. If Mitakeumi's like healthy and what he should be, then that's a real battle. Kirishima feels like a bad matchup to me, but Abi feels like someone he could upset. Takakeisho, if he's injured still, which he obviously is, that feels like someone he could upset. And then you dip a little lower, some guys we haven't talked about yet, but again, guys who I think are appropriately ranked, like Shononoumi at M5, because of that good early form. He kind of collapsed at the end, which we knew was going to happen. But Ura, Tobizaru, Onosho, like, tough fights for him, but coin flips that should maybe be in his favor. I don't know.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm leaning, where like I would hope they at least go positive. Maybe he won't. It depends on how it shakes out. I don't see that a lot of Sanyaku of this group dropping out.
Yeah.
It's hard to know with Hiradoumi because it's his first time. Typically that doesn't go well for them. He's nothing against him, obviously. It's just it's just a tough group.
No, yeah, very tough. Right. I hope he holds serve. I hope he can just hit an 8 and 7 and stabilize and push forward here. We'll see. Like I said, chronically underrated, at least if by no one else then by me. Like, his on paper, you know, compare him to someone who I also have been very high on, Nishiki Fuji, who again I still think is good. I think he's not healthy. I think that this is another Isegahama problem. I think Isegahama has wrecked him. But like, I've always thought Hiradoumi and Nishiki Fuji were kind of similar comps, except that Hiradoumi just keeps consistently getting it done, whereas Nishiki Fuji has the highs and the lows. So I just don't think I'm ever high enough on Hiradoumi, and I want to see something from him.
Yeah, no, I'm the exact same way.
Yeah, you mentioned though guys dropping out of Sanyaku, but how about like dropping out in general? So we've mentioned a lot of retreads here and yo-yo men, like Kagayaki, a serial yo-yoer, Bushozan, a serial yo-yoer. In that range from M13 to 17. So we got a couple big hitters there. Endo's back, but still, you know, at risk down there. Hokuto Fuji has dipped down into that range. Takada Fuji is kind of just trying to hold serve here at the end of his career. Chiyoshima's back up. Who do you think is going to drop out? Do you think Nishiki Fuji is going to hold serve down there? Do you think Bushozan or Kagayaki finally can put together a string of being up? Do you think someone like Hokuto Fuji has a collapse and we lose him? What are you thinking in the bottom for who's going to go down to Juryo?
I'm a big fan, but Niskafuji's going to drop down probably. I think he's now unfortunately in that kind of yo-yo range where he's too good for Juryo, but like he just can't quite hold it up here anymore.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean,
which is a bummer because he's only been doing this he's only been Makuuchi for what, like a year and a half?
I guess, yeah. Because he, I think, was a late bloomer of sorts, yeah. But I'm with you, like, I mean, he's not always good or whatever, but like someone like Kageyaki, so he's coming up from Juryo with an 11-4 right now. Previously, he's come up from Juryo from the high ranks or whatever with good like 9-win tournaments, things like that. And like when you see him on the dohyo, like he looks very good, in my opinion, always like on the dohyo. But then I look at his numbers and I'm like, what is this? So maybe that's Nishikifuji's fate as well, and such is life. But you know, we can always hope for more. Beyond that, though, do you have any dark horse favorites? So you and I love to talk about. I mean, we keep threatening to do it. We're gonna do it here one of these days. But in fantasy sumo and stuff like that, there are these interesting, like, I'll say warped metrics where like guys who don't necessarily have a great tournament by the normal standards end up having great fantasy seasons. But in regular sumo, who is someone that you think could surprise us and challenge for this Yusho? Until the last 3 days, last tournament, it was Shonanumi, right? Sometimes these low rankers who feast on the guys around them instead of everybody kind of just trading punches. Someone cleans up all those matches. Who do you think is a dark horse to contend for this one?
So initially I was like, Wakamoto Haru should do well. But then when I saw Asanoyama at 12, even with Wakatakakage at 14, I think it's going to be Asanoyama. I don't think he'll win just based on the performance that we've seen in the past, but I think he should be at almost at the very top the whole time.
Yeah.
Wakatakakage at 14, it's good, but he also hasn't fought in Makuuchi in a long time.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a new level of challenge for him. Asanoyama's been up here. He should clean house.
Yeah. I think so too, especially as long as he's healthy. I think you're right on with your analysis there. Those are the two that I'm looking at, Wakatakakage and Asanoyama. And so I'll leave Asanoyama be because I just agree with you. Wakatakakage, like 14-1 in the Juryo Championship coming up just now. He did lose to Kageyaki, but that's a guy, he's big, he's solid, he's got a big frame, whatever. And it was early in the Basho because Wakatakakage ended up for the final, what was it, like the final 12 days, he went 12-0. And so now he has fought back-to-back full slate tournaments. So, you know, that's something we always worry about, guys coming back from injury, and have they fought enough consistent matches? But interestingly, his March tournament, which was when he came back to Juryo, he came out of the gates absolutely blazing, 7-0, and ended up going 2-6 for the second week of the tournament, which was miserable. And I think that was stamina that first time back at these top levels. So it was good for me to see that second week is where he really hammered on the gas. And he did beat guys. He beat Daiamami and Daishoho when they were having good tournaments. He knocked off Endo, which was huge. Onokatsu, he knocked off. So he, in that second half, fought some really good guys. And he had that second half sprint, which is great to see. So maybe he's back. But again, like you said, I worry that this is the first tournament back that's kind of the rude awakening. Now, the fact that we have so many returns coming up, Roga's only recently per se up from Juryo. Like, I think the Chiyoshoma Kageyaki Bushozan Roga, he's used to fighting them, and that's fine, so he'll be good. But like, I do think fighting Asanoyama, Hokutofuji, Terunofuji, who's been doing well, holding form here. Nishikigi is down there where he's going to have to fight him. That's a mountain of a man. Even someone like Ichi Yamamoto just coming at him with those palms of fury, just slap, slap, slap. Midori Fuji's trickiness, like the diversity of styles that you see at Makuuchi as opposed to Juryo, and the caliber of these guys who, like you're talking about, while they have dropped, they're really good. You know, like we talk all the time, like, it's easy to get down on someone like Terunofuji, who's struggling down here at the bottom. And then you're like, wait, but he's still one of the 50 best sumo wrestlers in the world.
Yeah. Like there's still huge talent at that end. And curious looking at it. Do you think that's going to cause enough of a disruption for somebody like towards the top to sneak through? Because now I'm thinking the second week, Asanoyama Wakatakakage will very likely be fighting a lot of Sanyaku. Well, that's 2 slots then that potentially somebody in the upper mega shears now is not going to have to.
Yeah. Like, yeah, I mean, maybe, like, I don't see it from a Tomifuji, frankly, just because of what we've seen. If anything, with a Tomifuji, I'm sitting here, like, white-knuckling it, clinging to the hope of 9 and 6, so he can finally make it to Komusubi. And we've already talked about, I don't really have the faith in Mitakeumi, but, like, is Meisei gonna surprise us? Meisei is a yo-yo man of a different sort. Not that he's always potentially going to get demoted, more that he is as likely to finish 13-2 as he is 3-12. Are you thinking someone like Meisei up there at the top? Is that what you're thinking, or?
That's like, yeah, if they create enough of a hole that he can even slide through a little bit, because, like, I mean, he's got one of the best records against Terunofuji, but then he'll lose against Hirodomi.
I know. It's madness. Yeah, maybe, like, and you never know. This is why we love Banzuke Christmas, because everything's a possibility when ultimately through the first 4 or 5 days, we'll kind of know the storylines, right? Like, is it going to be someone like Ura who came out of the gates blazing last Basho and then absolutely collapsed, like 6-0 to 7-8? Is it going to be our beloved flying monkey Tobizaru, or he's not really a villain, but we like to paint him as such because we like the idea that he's like the mean mugger powerhouse. But Onosho, can he get it together? Like, I think, because where I think you're exactly spot on is it's only going to be one of these guys. Meisei Tomifuji, Wakamoto Haru Mitakeumi, Takayasu Gonoyama, Tobizaru, Ura, Onosho. I guess Shononumi, we're going to throw him in there, but I really don't think it's going to be him. But those M1 through 5s, they get so beat up by fighting the Sanyaku and fighting each other. It's only going to be one of them. But one of them is going to come out of this melee. You know what I mean?
Yes, and we have been pleasantly surprised by, like you'd said, Tobizaru Ura in the past.
Yep.
Mostly Tobizaru, I guess, where he had his Komusubi yo-yo.
Yes, yeah. Tobizaru, like, he's the best, man. Like, I just love the monkey, and just, I don't know. Like, he is good. He doesn't have the size, but he has the weight. I don't know. He's a guy who I feel like, where when we look at someone like Mitakeumi, and Takanosho too, serial underperformers, like underperforming their physicals and their talent levels. Tobizaru, I feel like, is a guy who is always squeezing every ounce of toothpaste out of the tube, and I friggin' love it.
Yeah, he's performing at 110% all the time. He always tries to pull out goofy stuff. It doesn't always work, but he tries.
Yeah, exactly. And Uda fights the same way or whatever, but just like, I don't know, it feels different. I guess the reason it feels different is because Ura had those knee injuries, right? Like, that's sort of the difference, whereas Tobi's never had that brutal injury that's messed up a career. But yeah, just, there are a couple guys that when they're fighting, I'm smiling. So, yeah, I don't know. Just to, like, recap it then, I'm with you. One of those guys could probably be the dark horse. Like, I could see it being Takayasu. If he strings together 15 days without back spasms, it could easily be Takayasu. But there's no way that's happening. So I do think you're right that Asanoyama, and then I'll throw my dice behind Wakatakakage. Although, like we talked about, I don't think it's going to be Wakatakakage. I think you're correct in picking Asanoyama. I think not because Wakatakakage can't beat these guys, but just looking at his first Juryo tournament back too, like, there's no way to train for that. Like, having to fight them day after day after day. I think that's what's on week 2. That's what's going to be a problem for Wakatakakage. Whereas Asanoyama, as long as he's healthy, should be fine. I'm not worried at all about the ACL anymore. I think Wakatakakage has shown that he's back and he's healthy, so that's good for dark horses. But those are guys who have, like, we think conditional wins, right? Like, they have a way that they could win. What do you think for the actual favorite? And here's where we probably return to the Sanyaku, and maybe where we have to have the conversation about Terunofuji, who still, it is not confirmed whether he's fighting or not. Who's your actual favorite for this baby?
Oh man, so that's tough. If there's the same caveat as always, is Terunofuji healthy enough? If he is, yes, he'll probably win.
Yeah, we've already talked about it. A 70% Terunofuji. We saw it with the 12-3 win. I think Teru was like 70% there, not even close to his peak form, and he got it done. Did we like watching a 12-3 tournament from the Yokozuna? No, we did not like that. But he got it done. Those guys couldn't take advantage of it, even with him as wounded as he is. However, we've seen many tournaments like the most recent one where Teru comes in at 55, 60%. Okay, at that point they can totally beat him. So yeah, it's just like, what percentage is he? Because it's not 100% and it's not 90%.
And then same story with Takakeisho. Yep. Is he in fighting condition enough to come back successfully? He probably has one of the highest odds of winning. He has so much experience. He has tons of other tournament wins. But outside of those,
he just got a good chunk of rest after sitting out. Yes. Like we've seen in the past, he's done good after coming back after rest, although the last time in March that wasn't great, but it did. But like in September, he came back, went 11-4, won the tournament.
And he does not like being Kataban. He fights hard coming back from those.
Right. I'm with you. And it's just that fear for me. It's just that, and I think you're on the same side as me or whatever. It's like, he comes back and fights great off of Kataban, but like in March, he got his 7th win on day 9 and then had to struggle for 4 days to get that 8th and then immediately dropped out because he obviously wasn't healthy. He was trying to get it done so that he could take off another tournament and stuff like that. So I worry with Takakeisho, just like you say. I can't make him my favorite because I'm like, okay, well, is he going to come out of the gates screaming and streaming and then get his 8 wins and drop out because he was like just like mortgaging his body yet again to get those 8? I don't know.
Yes, which obviously there's the fact of, is Orosato?
Yep.
He's just coming off a win. Could he do it again? Probably. But for some, I think my gut is hoping, my brain is hoping for a Kotozakura, like his first tournament win.
Yeah, finally get it. I know he's been so tantalizingly close so many times here, and I do think he deserved the Ozeki status even without the tournament, because, you know, that's an exception technically. If you get a Junior show, that's fine. And I think he deserved it, especially with that 13-2 where he didn't actually win the tournament and stuff like that. But when's it going to happen? Like, and now at this point, it starts to become a mental thing, right? Like, lest we forget, again, I know he's divisive and not everybody likes Papayasu, but like Big Taka has one of his generation, has one of the best, like easily top 10, probably top 5 sort of like career credentials, bona fides. Never did get it. And once you get past a certain age and a certain number of tournaments, people start to talk about it being mental, which may be true, maybe not. But at this point, how can you look at Takayasu with all those Junyu shows and not think that he's built a curse in his own head? Like, Kotozakura is flirting with making that his life too.
That's an interesting point. I have a lot of hope for him that he can do it. He's skilled enough. It's just, there's always like a speed bump, like Terunofuji will come back for 2 days. He'll be the one to take him out and then he'll leave.
Yeah, I got you. Or like last tournament, he actually, one of the reasons I think Hirodoumi deserves to be at Komusubi is he's one of the guys who knocked off Kotozakura. Takayasu is one of the guys who knocked off Kotozakura. He had an absolutely blistering tournament. Abi got him, pipped him as well. Daisho got, I mean, these are good fighters, you know what I mean? But just like, he's not throwing out those like, sit down, shut up, learn kind of performances. Even though he's beating Hoshoryu, he's beating other guys, like, you know what I mean? Like he's beating the best fighters. He's beating Wakamoto Haru, but it's still getting beat enough that it doesn't happen.
Yes, and especially now that he's the top Ozeki, like you kind of expect it for him to be able to, like, Abi's a hard fight, Daisho's a hard fight. But at this level, I'm like, well, you should be able to do it.
Yep. I'm with you. I think for motivation-based reasons, for current like power rankings-based performance reasons, and just like size, skill, pedigree, he should get this done. If we're talking about Kirishima, Takakeisho, Terunofuji, all for one reason or another out of the picture as favorites, not like tournaments per se, but if they're all out of the picture, I do think you're right, but what I will throw in there is staring right across the dohyo from him is Hoshoryu. his consistency is so good. The guy just like never posts a losing tournament and posts 10 and 11 win tournaments like they're candy, even when he's hurt. The question is like, what? I don't know. Is he going to be locked in? I guess. I don't think he's really got anything wrong with his mental game or anything. I don't really know. Like in May when he lost and was out of the gates 0-2 after a Tomifuji and Abi, I don't think those are shameful losses at all, but that did kind of like wreck his tournament from day one. He was really good. He was 10-3 the rest of the tournament, but those 2 early losses kind of ended it. Otherwise, the previous 2 tournaments before that, he's in contention like the whole time, battling it out. If anyone can't, he looks healthy after, a little scare in January. If anyone can and should be challenging Kotozakura, it's him. So I'm going to go ahead and say Hoshoryu as my favorite. So, Nick, you've got Kotozakura as your favorite with Asanoyama as your dark horse. I've got Hoshoryu as my favorite with Wakatakakage as my dark horse. Very interested listeners to like give us your favorite and your dark horse and maybe a little like 1 sentence, 2 sentence explanation of why, because I'm curious what other people think too. Because for Nick and I don't know. I mean, Nick went first, but I agreed with him every step of the way with his picks and stuff like that. I think there's some very clear through lines, but I'm curious to see if anyone has a different favorite or a different dark horse and the logic behind it. Because frankly, we know we're going to be wrong. So what's it going to be? Very curious. Other than that, Nick, anything you wanted to say about this Banzuke or the upcoming Basho?
Just keep my fingers crossed that Terunofuji actually comes back.
I know, like, we all want the swan song, right? Do you think it's best for it to happen now, sooner rather than later, because he has those hip injuries, or would it be better if he sat out? Because they're pretty much going to give him carte blanche now. They're never going to, like, make it. They're not going to do what they did to Kakuryu to him because they can't. Like, there's no one else waiting in the wings.
I'd like to see him come back now, go out on a win so he can get that damn surgery he's been putting off.
I know, right? Like, that's what we both want, I think, is like, just get your 10. We know at this, I think he's not going to stop at this point. Now he's so close to 10, and what we've seen him do so far, like, he just wants those double digits. And frankly, I think that's reasonable because the 10 puts him on a different page of the history books, and he's going to be in the history books no matter what. But it puts him at the very back end of a page in the history books that, frankly, he deserves to have been at. But he should have been, like, at the top of the page, except for those knee injuries. Now, his comeback story is, in my opinion, the greatest story in sumo. I mean, you could say, like, just like the sheer dominance of Hakuho is one thing or whatever, but just that comeback story, and then to see how good he was when he came back and made his Yokozuna run. But basically, I guess what I'm talking about is how the year of 2021, the way he destroyed sumo, like, this guy's one of the all-time talents that we've ever seen, and I think that's what's happening here, is he doesn't want to leave it up to chance where he would fade in the memory of sumo fans. He wants that 10th win to make sure he can say, no, I was here. I was not only one of the greatest stories in sumo, I was just one of the greatest rikishi. And I think in his mind, 10 is what makes that happen. And he's probably right. So that's what he wants. And if that's the case, don't come back in July, dude. I know it'd be kind of cool, the last ever tournament in the Aichi Prefectural Gymnasium or whatever, but it's blistering hot. Like, the air condition doesn't work in that building, and everyone's right on top of you. Like, it's not ideal conditions for a guy who's not perfectly healthy. This is a basho where the young thrive because they got the stamina to put up with that. I don't know. Come back in September, do it in the Kokugi-Con.
Do it. Weather's a little nicer. Let's hope for the best.
Yeah. So I don't know. That was me on a diatribe, but that's where, like, I don't know that he should come back. I think he's going to come back, and this is why. I don't think he should come back for this tournament if that's his reasoning.
Yeah.
Yeah. But besides that, again, Love to hear your guys' predictions on if you think Teru's coming back or not, or comments on him. But really interested to hear your favorites and dark horses, and maybe some reasoning, because there are other picks besides the ones Nick and I made. I just like those feel like the most obvious to me, which tells me that I'm definitely going to be wrong. So curious to see what other people say. Other than that, any other Banzuke thoughts, Nick?
No, just hoping for another fantastic July like always.
Yeah, I love Sumo. Happy to have it back. So thanks for listening, everybody. We'll talk to you again soon.